Hey guys, we are live. So what I want to talk about Google Ads. So I've titled this regarding some data points that I'm seeing that we need to make some adjustments based on Google Ads. And what those adjustments are is if you're running Google Ads, previously you needed at least 10 clicks a day. So if you're new to Google Ads, then you know that if you've watched any type of my content, that what I've previously said is we want to be generating at least 10 clicks a day. By generating 10 clicks a day, that gives you and it gives the algorithm enough information. But what I'm finding right now is based off of the data is that we are needing to up the amount of minimum clicks that we're generating per campaign per day. So I would say now, rather than 10 clicks a day, you want to be looking at around 15. If you can generate 20 clicks a day, but a minimum of 15 clicks a day. Obviously, if you're running a budget, if you've got a big budget, then obviously you're fine for this. But a lot of advertisers, if they're new or they're running sort of 30, 40, 50 a day, which is still, it's a fair chunk of money over a period of 30 days, then we want to be looking to generate 30 clicks, so like 15 clicks a day. So remember, if you're not sure what budget you need based on the advice that I'm giving you and what I'm seeing right now, then you need to look at the average CPC, which is your cost per click. So if your cost per click is say £2, $2 a day, then if you times it by 10, it's going to give you a budget of around 20 a day. And that's how you figure out what your budgets are based on a CPC. So again, if it's 20 a day and it's 10 clicks, then if you want to generate 15 clicks, then what you have to do is that budget needs to go from 20 to 30 a day to give you the minimum amount of clicks. And that's how you work out what type of budget that you need to be running for your Google Ads campaign. The reason I'm saying this is what I'm seeing is it's taking a little bit longer for Google Ads campaigns to optimize. So what I'm seeing, even on 15 clicks, 20 clicks a day, and obviously if you're generating 30, 40, 50 clicks a day, then you're absolutely fine. Then it's just about then the optimization of the Google Ads. But what I'm seeing is based off of all of this is that it's taking a little bit longer anyway. And Google is changing. There's a lot of changes going on with AI and where we're being seen in AI overviews, and advertisers reporting getting less clicks for the same budget as they were probably 6 months ago. And there's a lot of things going on. So we have to be nimble. We have to be able to, on a dime, switch our strategies based on the data that we're seeing. And if we're not aware of the data, then it's going to be very difficult for us to make those changes. And that's why the devil is in the detail, guys. We need to make sure that we're optimizing based on the data that we're getting back from Google. And if we get that, and again, this runs from all the platforms, Meta the same. You need to be looking at the data, understanding what key data points we're getting, and then we can optimize based off of that. So what I'm seeing is the first month is taking a little bit longer to get enough data. Month 2, we're starting to see a little bit more optimization, a little bit more conversions happening. And towards the end of month 2 to the beginning of month 3, that's what I'm starting to see campaigns going from steady month 1, month 2, getting a good amount of conversion. Then suddenly end of month 2 to month 3, I'm seeing massive explosions of conversions, growth, whatever you want to call it, from the Google Ads side of things. And remember, even though we might be seeing massive amounts of growth, explosions, and all the other good stuff that we want, we still need to be looking at the actual sales figures for our Google Ads. So if we're running an advertising and Google Ads says one thing, if you're suddenly seeing a 30, 40% increase in sales, and Google's saying that maybe only the attribution of say 10 or 15% should be going to Google Ads, really, we need to be realistic with our figures in the sense that if you're seeing 30% increase and it's more than what Google Ads, then the chances are that attribution should be going to Google. And the reason I say that is we need to be having these proper conversations, these adult conversations, that if you've done nothing to your business and you're month on month, year on year, if over 12 months you average, say, £30,000 in sales, suddenly you spin up Google Ads. And I have these conversations with owners all the time. And I said, yeah, but the Google Ads says that we've only generated, 10 conversions. But what do your actual sales figures say? If you've generated over the last 12 months, every month, on average, guys, say £30,000 worth of sales, and then suddenly you start running Google ads and suddenly your sales figures go from 30 to say 45,000, and then the next month they go 45 to 48,000, then 48 to 50, but your Google ads say that you should only attribute, say, a fraction, say half of that allocation of sales should go to Google. But yet, where did the rest of the sales come from? The chances are that all of that, or most of it, should be attributed to Google. Even though Google says one figure, the reality of what we're trying to say is that actually more of the attribution should go to Google, because if you've done nothing else apart from run Google ads, then where else are you getting that sudden increase in sales from, or suddenly increase in leads from? I just think we need to be a little bit more realistic with our optimizations and understanding of actually where do we attribute the conversions coming from, and not necessarily what Google tells us. And this should be the clarity that we should have within our businesses. And too many businesses don't actually know what their figures are, what their bottom lines are, where the attribution should be going. I recently had a conversation. Last Christmas, I had a conversation with a business, and very, very seasonal. And we basically, what happened is the business had been taken over. And the previous business owner, we used to go through these conversations. And one of the conversations that I used to talk about is exactly what we're saying. We would ramp up the ad spend for Google. We would spend about 15,000 a month, and then coming up to Christmas, before we would ramp the ad spend up to about 40,000. Coming up to Christmas, and then we would increase it up to maximum was around 50,000. But for that 50,000, the Google would see an uptick, 100%. We would see a big uptick with the Google conversions for sales. So this was a purchase. This was for sales, e-commerce, and it was very, very, very heavily based on seasonality. But his sales would 10 times, guys. He would 10 times his business from November to December, massively. November, December, it would go. I mean, we got up to something like 15, 16 times the return on ad spend. And again, return on ad spend is not something 100% that I would, necessarily focus on. But his actual sales figures would increase massively, and that was the figure that I was more interested in, because we were doing other stuff, but the real driver was Google and Meta ads. And when his business was taken over the following month, for whatever reasons, he wanted to retire, so he sold the business on. We would have the conversation with the new owners, and they wanted me to give the figures for Google and Meta. And when I did, they were like, well, they're not as successful as we thought they were. But we would again have to explain to them that the conversation needed to be had based on the sales figures. The only other thing that we've done differently was increase the budget for Meta and Google. So where do you think those sales got attributed? But that was the misunderstanding. They couldn't figure out that the actual sales figures should or could have come from Google, even though Google dashboard said something different. And again, this is about education. It's about having a little bit of common sense. And I think sometimes I talk about the attention to detail. I talk about the fact that we should be looking at the dashboard. But the reality is, guys, we just need to sprinkle a little bit of common sense onto the situation. And sometimes you just need to just know what those figures are based on the sales of your actual product or your service. That if the only thing that you've done differently is add in the platform for, say, Google or Meta, then if you see an increase in sales, then that has to be attributed to Google. And the reason is because if you're doing nothing differently, your sales don't suddenly increase, guys. So a little bit of common sense, a little bit of understanding into what's actually working can really, really give you some clarity into your business. So don't always go by the dashboard in Google or Meta, because with privacy policies and all the app or updates we've had over the years and all the other privacy things that have kicked in, you don't get a clear 100% clear understanding from the dashboard of these platforms that these are your sales. Just check your own sales figures, check your own leads, and then give that feedback to yourself and or to your advertising agency, and have these adult conversations based on fact. And I guess that's probably the key word here, is we have to have these proper conversations knowing what our figures are. So if we lead with that, we have an understanding of where those figures are coming from and how we can then drive the brand, drive the business forward based on what's happening in real time on the back end of your platform. So again, having that understanding definitely will make a difference to your business. So I hope that makes sense, guys. If you have any questions, one of the things that I do offer is I offer a free audit, 10-15 minute free audit for your Google Ads. Again, if you have running Google Ads and you want to know if your platform could be improved, something that I offer, then let me know and I can definitely do that for you and give you some true feedback to what's working and how we can scale your business.